Welcome to the first episode of the Skeleton Crew podcast. We've got
Harry.
And this is Tim, and today we're going to be talking about what?
Well, before I had several great jokes in our first take, then we realized that the microphone was not the live audio channel, and so this is our second take, and I'm all out of material.
All right, well, that's all, folks.
No, I think it'd be a good idea for you to tell us what you're trying to do here, because you talked a little bit about, talk about current events. I mean, if we're just a news thing, then, or you're just a news thing, is really your thing. And I'm just kind of a guest here, but
yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be very good at news because we live in East Texas.
Yeah.
Is it okay to say our location? You're trying to...
No, that's fine.
Like, nothing happens here.
Yeah, that's very true. But that's also kind of a good thing, right? Like,
in a way, it's a good thing. But it also means you're going to suck as a news source because you're not going to have any scoops on anything. You're like, the deer got hit by a truck today. And that relates to Trump's foreign policy because of...
Yeah, no, it's okay. So, obviously I'm not going to, at least initially, since we don't have like any sources or anything like that.
Yeah.
Initially, we're not going to be able to provide like, firsthand scoops, on stuff. So we're going to have to rely on already existing material in order to create commentary based on that.
So we're really just giving commentary. You're giving commentary. You're looking at the current events and you're providing your personal view on it.
Exactly. And I guess you would say it's kind of, pretty much that.
So do you think that you have a voice that's special and that deserves to be heard? Do you think your friends may have insights that you think are useful? Or is it just like, well, there's a million other jerks out there talking, why not me?
Both.
Yeah.
Because the way I look at it is that you have, like, I would say that everybody's mind is significant towards the fact that each individual is capable of providing an outlook on something that other people won't necessarily provide.
You got 7 billion different little mirrors on the disco ball.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're not a hive mind or anything like that, thank God. Of course, liberals would love us to be, but...
I think there's a lot of people that like us to be. There's some on the left, there's some on the right. I mean, hives are easier to control, right? If we're all exactly tuned in, but...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I guess you're more... I see myself as conservative, and a lot of conservatives have seen me as kind of like not conservative at all.
No, actually I took a political compass test not that long ago, and apparently I'm pretty much almost dead center libertarian.
Really?
Yeah.
I was pretty much dead center.
Yeah.
No, I was slightly more libertarian, but I think that's kind of something
I was slightly left of center libertarian.
You're telling me that in the state of Texas there are two libertarian guys talking to each other?
Yeah.
Vaguely about politics?
Shocking, isn't it?
Wow.
Shocking.
Yeah. I don't know. I came over here because you had mentioned you were going to do this. I've been thinking about, there's a lot of idiots out there that are talking right now, and some of the idiots have a lot of other people that are listening to them and are following them, and I think that's kind of bad. I think this weekend you saw an example of that with Charlottesville, like just all the chaos that ensued from that. And then in other countries, you've got other people that are attacking people. We've had terrorist attacks this week. We've had two separate areas, and in one of them was like 3 attacks or 4 attacks that happened at the same time in Barcelona. Yeah. So you're talking about Finland had a knife attack. It was a terrorist attack. You could call this guy in Charlottesville a terrorist attack, a domestic terrorist if you want.
Yeah.
You can call the Barcelona attacks are definitely terrorist attacks. So you're talking about half a dozen terrorist attacks within less than 7 days.
Yeah. Isn't it really odd how they always seem to coordinate with each other?
Well, not really, because the ones in Barcelona, I think, were definitely coordinated.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one of those things where I don't I don't think it's weird that one seems coordinated, because I think it is coordinated.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm talking about it seems like...
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when shit hits the fan, shit really hits the fan.
You know, there's a reason for that. And, you know, even though we're both kind of on the, I guess, slightly right center of the political spectrum, we're going to have a lot of very different views.
Oh, yeah,
and,
of course.
And I'm a little bit more of a believer that there's more of a free market of ideas going on out there. I don't think, we were talking about this before we started recording, the whole deep state thing. You know, I'm not really buying into that big time.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really not even a question that I think is something I talk or think about, because it doesn't change how I look at life. But I do think that there's an economy of misery going on.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And when people talk about how they're frustrated with mainstream media, you know, you hear people throw around MSM, mainstream media, this, that, and the other. I think part of it is we're tired of people profiting off of the economy of misery.
Yeah.
We're tired of, as soon as one bad thing happens, oh, we got to tell every other bad thing in the world. There's 7 billion people in the world. Of course something horrible happened.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you know, whenever you put a bunch of cats in one bag, they're eventually going to end up fighting.
And then you have someone coming up and saying, well, here's where one of them got scratched and another one got bit and another one. And it's like, what's the thing where they were talking about how whenever there's a certain kind of violence that happens, you know, maybe you say race-motivated violence or police brutality or something like that. I'm not saying those should not be seen as very serious, because I mean, we're both on the libertarian end. Like, you know, we're not cool with police brutality. No, they're here to protect us. They're not here to oppress us.
Yeah. Well,
by the way, I'm white, in case you haven't figured it out. So when I say oppressing us, I'm talking about Americans.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think the problem...
But you hear one story, you hear 10.
Yeah. The problem with the current political climate is, especially coming from news, is that there's if you look at it and you connect all the dots, there's a very clear agenda.
There's a narrative being drawn.
Yeah. And it's very, very clear. It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist or an engineer to figure that out. You know, so like the real question is like, what are we supposed to do about that? What can we do about that?
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know, like, you know, like me personally, like what I had said earlier on Facebook, like I really think that there needs to be serious repercussions for journalists spreading misinformation in a volatile manner.
I think we found our topic for the day.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what our topic is.
Yeah. You know, so like I'm of the belief that, first of all, we could both wholeheartedly agree, I'm sure, that journalists have, especially mainstream media journalists, have an immense amount of power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think anyone with access to a bullhorn that can reach into anyone's house and has an immense amount of power and influence.
But, you know, like, there comes that slippery slope, right, of, well, this is obviously a free speech issue, right? And you
see, I don't think it is a free speech issue.
Well, see, that's the problem, though, because where some people might not think so, others would vehemently disagree or agree. You know, it's still a slippery slope regardless of what you think about it. But the whole point is that free speech or not, I believe that if you're spreading lies and propaganda on a mass scale, there has to be repercussions for that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like...
Yeah, as in I see what you're saying. Not that I necessarily agree.
Yeah. Now, of course, there comes the issue of, well, who's to decide who's capable of doing that? Like, how many people do they have to be able to reach, right?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so like Joe Blow down the street, he can talk to 10 people, so like, is that enough? Or is 1,000 people enough? Like, that's another slippery slope.
Well, I think it's one of those things where this is kind of an issue that has a solution in place if people were able to use the tools that are there to protect them. And this is one of the things we're talking about. You were saying, a fine for it. And I think, civil courts is a lot of people's opportunity. The thing is that we're talking about when the news says something irresponsible. The question is, when they say something irresponsible or false, does that damage anyone? And I think if it's supposed to be news, it's going to have someone who's the victim of it.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to be lying about someone or about something that has tangible damage, and I think you can sue under that. It's written, it's libel.
This is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Say for instance, like you know who Nancy Grace is?
Yeah.
Okay, Nancy Grace, can't stand the bitch.
Never seen an episode of her show.
Can't stand the bitch. I've overheard episodes of her show. And it's awful. Like, she'll find out about a crime that someone has potentially committed, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, like, after jury selection and things like that. I'm talking about, like, as it's done.
Like harassing the accused.
Exactly.
Before they're proven guilty.
Before even a trial is set.
Yeah.
She's going on to national television and saying that she thinks this person is guilty.
Yeah.
Right there, boom, jury pool, poison.
Yeah. Now, my question is, what happens when the person is exonerated? What happens when they find that, they didn't actually kill this person, or they didn't do this activity? Well, that doesn't mean that their life isn't affected.
Oh, yeah, exactly. 9 times out of 10, news media corporations that actually go through and talk about these types of things hardly ever retract. Yeah. And whenever they do retract, it's silently.
Yeah, well, what good is putting it on the front page of, what was the guy after the Boston Marathon? You remember hearing about that? They ID'd the wrong guy for the Boston Marathon at first.
Oh, yeah,
And he ended up killing himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then later they found was the 2 brothers who actually did it.
Yep.
Yeah, the first guy they ID'd as some BuzzFeed writer.
Yeah.
Oh, can we say the name, or are we going to get in trouble for slander because we talked bad about BuzzFeed?
Because like the whole thing about slander, right, is it's like,
oh, that's right, it's true.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we're not making anything up.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
There was a news agency. I'm not going to say it again because I don't want them to show up like, friggin', what is it, Rumpelstiltskin or whatever it is.
That one guy. That one thing.
Yeah. Say his name 3 times and he appears. Anyway, yeah, and what happened? What happened to the guy who wrote that story? He ended up getting signed on with a bigger...
Yeah.
News agency, if you can call it news, really, but he got signed up with another agency to continue to do these things.
Yeah, and another...
And that story hit recently. That was what he ended up doing, but that's another point. The point is that they've done this. They've hurt people.
Yeah. Another thing that really blows my mind is, you know who Jeff Bezos is?
I don't know. That the name sounds vaguely familiar. It's someone I should probably have known of, I'm guessing.
He's like one
great thing about Google.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull out my phone right now.
Yeah, look him up real quick. I'll give you some time.
Cool. Let's see.
All right, so Jeff Bezos is one of the most powerful men in the world.
Okay. So go ahead and say something about like talk. Go ahead and start with your point. I'm just gonna continue looking up.
Jeff Bezos is the owner of Amazon.
That's where I know him from.
Yeah. Now he actually bought the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine, right? That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Which I read a lot of Washington Post articles, and I like that on the articles that they're right on some, like the ones where they get the information correct, they give a little bit more detail and background.
Yeah.
But on the articles that they get wrong, I was looking at one recently, and made me sick to my stomach, and it's obviously a hack job. Like there's no background to it. But go ahead.
Well, the really big problem about Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post is the fact that there is a huge conflict of interest there. Jeff Bezos actually has a multi-million or multi-billion dollar, I can't remember how much exactly. It's either like 400 or 500 million or 400 or 500 billion. I can't fucking remember.
For what?
They actually have a contract with the CIA.
Okay.
So the contract is basically like the CIA is using Amazon's cloud service to store information.
All of this is news to me.
Yeah. So that right there, massive conflict of interest. Like you cannot get Jeff Bezos or the Washington Post to reliably comment on things involving the CIA.
600 million was the price tag.
600 million?
Yeah. I'm looking up some news source. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it looks vaguely reliable. Go ahead, and I'll tell you when I get the details.
But yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, there's a huge conflict of interest there. Like, you know, news agencies, they should be looked at like the legal system, right? Like, you obviously don't want a judge residing over your case whenever he's like best friends with the prosecution.
Okay. Yeah, I looked a little more into it, and so I actually have particular insight into this thing from how I read it because of the work I do. I'm not an IT guy per se, but I work with IT. And what it looks like is that the CIA bought $600 million worth of cloud computing solutions so that they could use cloud locations to better transfer data back and forth between their affiliates and their agency.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't look like they're doing anything with using Amazon's resources of its marketing or anything like that. It's something that I know of many companies who buy space on Amazon servers that are doing stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying, that you're taking hundreds of millions of dollars from the government, and then you are also going to be running an unbiased free media enterprise that's supposed to inform people. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So clearly a conflict of interest regardless of, how that business transaction played out.
Yeah.
They're still receiving a large amount of money from a government entity.
Yeah.
And the main problem with that is that they don't have this, like, this isn't like something that the public can easily find, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't, like, whenever you go to the Washington Post or whatever, they're not like, they're not telling you, like, hey, there may be a conflict of interest here because we are in a contract with the CIA, like the owner is in a contract with the CIA or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem.
I mean, but is that something they should put on their front page? Is that something that's necessary for them to put on their front? Like, welcome to the Washington Post. We are vaguely affiliated with taking money from the CIA. Read at your own discretion.
I don't know, man. That's a good question.
So here's the question about Bezos. Like, here's what he does. He seems that he's more of like a retail and investment entrepreneur person. He's not a journalist.
No, not at all.
So the worst that he could possibly be doing by manipulating news is hiring like a chief editor with political leanings, or hiring like a puppet editor.
Well, see, this is the problem, right?
Yeah.
The fucking CEO of CNN.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the Project Veritas leaks about that?
I saw some of the videos. I'm not specifically which one you're talking about. I saw the ones where they were basically saying that, like, they don't really care if the stories are true or not. They care about getting the money.
Yeah,
like they care about the hits, the clicks.
Yeah. And the problem is that the CEO of CNN literally, like, well, okay, so we don't actually have video or audio of him actually saying this, but according to one of CNN's producers.
Well, there's video and audio of people who were apparently in that meeting
that
didn't know that they were being recorded or something, which, you know, that goes to show that it was probably a little bit more honest, but at the same time...
Yeah. Well, it's coming from a third party.
Yeah.
Who... All right, so it's basically a producer at CNN at I believe, Atlanta.
Well, there's a couple of them. I mean, I'm not going to say names, but it's one of them that I recognize very easily. Like, there's a couple people, and they're celebrities.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, I know that they have meetings with this guy.
Yeah, and, like, you know, they literally said that the CEO of CNN pretty much said, you know, I don't really care what big, important things are going on in the news cycle right now.
Follow this because it's...
Yeah. Like,
what
do the Russia thing because it's getting us a lot of revenue.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, I mean, what's the biggest prize in journalism?
What you mean, like Pulitzer or something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, what was Pulitzer famous for?
I do not know. I'm not that informed.
Okay, so the history of the Pulitzer Prize is that it's named after Joseph Pulitzer.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really well known for his work with, I can't remember the exact name of the boat. Oh, it was the Remember the Maine. That's what it is.
Remember the what?
The Maine.
Like Lion's Maine or
the
State Maine?
Like the State Maine, the USS Maine.
Oh, a boat Maine.
Yeah.
Gotcha. There's so many.
Okay,
Man.
So basically they ran a story, Remember the Maine, and...
Remember the Man?
Yeah, William Randolph Hearst, Joseph Pulitzer, they ran the story about the USS Maine. Remember the Maine, because it had exploded and it killed, like, over 200 sailors. And they're like, oh, Spain did this, those jerks. And it led us into war with Spain.
Wow.
And then come to find out that it was an accident.
Wow.
And you're talking about yellow journalism to the point of kind of excusing entry into a war.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what a lot of people complain about now, or definitely were complaining about during the Bush era, was like, oh, you know, the media's saying this, and we're all just trying to go to war. It's like, well, what's the biggest prize that you can possibly have? And I'm sure, you know, toward the end of his life, the whole reason that the Pulitzer Prize was created was probably, you know, in a way to try to show integrity in journalism as a way of kind of making up for the past, you know?
Yeah.
That's what people do. But still, it's kind of funny that, you know, how is it that they're all concerned with sensationalism? Well, the gold that they're trying to chase is named after, like, one of the sensationalist stories that led into a war.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, you know, I think we're going to end the podcast with a question. And the question is...
Wait, how long are we making the podcast?
Well, this is 26 minutes now, so it's going to be about 30 minutes long.
I thought these things were supposed to be like 4 hours.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
We're succinct than
that. We're definitely not going to be able to fill that much.
All right, well, time's ticking.
Yeah. Not exact, but about 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm going to end with a question. That question is, do you think that there should be serious repercussions for journalists, private or public, who spread misinformation and lies?
I do. I think that there should be. Real recently, there was also the story about the guy who was falsely identified as a member of who was falsely identified as a racist in Charlottesville. He's actually a college professor in Arkansas. He was sitting at home and had nothing to do with it. So this is still going on, and I mean, he could have been attacked. There could have been real repercussions for him. He had to call the cops to make sure that.
Oh yeah, he could have died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there should be serious repercussions. I think that the repercussions should come from the current civil legal system. I think that there should probably be more victims' rights advocacy groups that will take on the legal fees for people who can't afford to sue for slander or for libel. I think that the government should not levy a charge against that kind of behavior in a quote-unquote free market system, because it would give the government an unfair, well, you were talking earlier about how you would have a conflict of interest. Well, I mean, if you're the one controlling, if you have a criminal court and you get paid every time someone says something wrong.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, that's a conflict of interest there.
Definitely.
So I don't think it should be a criminal, a new criminal thing out there. I think it should be handled by civil suits.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty much how I feel about it. Of course, it could use some tweaking and things like that to make sure that...
And things like that.
Yeah, you know, you fuck. To make sure that it's not being abused and that, you know, the government can't dip its fingers into it. And but, you know, what do you guys think? Let us know what you think about that question. Do you think that journalists who spread false information should have serious repercussions for their actions or not?
And whether those repercussions should be from the government or should be from the private sector.
Yeah, let us know.